Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
And hello, everybody. You're very welcome to a new episode of Redefining Cybersecurity here on ITSP Magazine. This is your host, Sean Martin. And as you know, I hopefully help folks try to operationalize security in the business, not to just protect what they have, but to protect the growth as well. And many of you know, I don't know if everybody knows, but many of you know I've had a role in delivering tons of products in the past and marketing them. And today's topic is one that I think we're going to have a lot of fun with. And I have Laurent Hausermann on. How are you, Laurent?
Hey, I'm fine, thank you, Sean. Thank you for inviting me.
It's going to be loads of fun. We're going to talk about building a product, and more specifically, a security product, which you've done many times, and I've done quite a number of times as well. And when I saw this post come across LinkedIn from you, I was like, this is something we can have some good fun chatting about. And I scrapped the other topic, which we'll probably come back to at some point. But I think it's interesting. I think how we can connect this to operationalizing security in the business. When we're talking about building security products, I think it gives some insight into folks of how security products get defined, built to be used successfully, which is not always the case, as you know, right? And I think let's just get into it. So before we do that, though, a few words about you and leading up to what you're working on now. Obviously, we have a connection from the past as well, so. Maybe a few words from you, Laurent.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Laurent Hausermann. I'm 46 this year. Time is going fast. And I work since 20 years in the cybersecurity business, always in product-driven companies. I was in engineering, software engineer at the beginning, then CTO of a firewall company. We are doing IDS, VPN, web filtering, all this stuff, and then I founded my own startup named Centrio. It was in the IoT OT security, providing visibility, security posture detection for manufacturing and utilities network. SCADA system, PLCs, and critical infrastructure kind of network. And it was 9 years ago, and I just left that company in April. The thing was that we've been acquired by Cisco in 2019, and I stayed for 3.5 years within Cisco to hook my team, hook my business within the group. And now I'm back as a free will, I would say, in order to build something new. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I like to build things and create new products in Europe and in the US.
Yep, I love it. And huge success with the Centrio offering, and obviously the Cisco acquisition there. And couldn't have been at a better time, right? I think that whole space of IoT and OT was something that was very untapped. I think we see a lot more of it now, of course, in recent years. But so maybe let's, I don't know if you mind, maybe just a few words on starting that and understanding what the risks were, the potential was. Because I think some of the things as you present in the LinkedIn post, it's you might have a good idea. It doesn't mean it's gonna be useful. Doesn't mean people will pay for it. Doesn't mean it'll actually get used if it gets built and bought. we can talk about shelfware all day long, right?
Yeah.
So maybe let's start there. How you came up with the idea, and maybe perhaps how you knew that there was an opportunity there beyond just succeeding in building something.
Yeah, sure. We it's funny because most of the time people think that you have an idea one day and overnight it's a success, which is not true. In fact, you basically need to follow a kind of process in order to discover if the idea worth something, if there is a market, if there is a need, is it solving some pains at customer side. And so, yeah, I remember that in 2014 when we started, it was just about, hey, let's look if there is anything to do in the industrial networks. Or we had customers in the past in manufacturing, in oil and gas, and we know that there was quite nothing, but we were really not sure what kind of feature, what kind of product they were willing to adopt. And so we end up building a white paper, a 2-minute video explaining what we were thinking about, and sending that documents to many contacts saying, well, guys, we are entrepreneurs, we are building a company, but we have nothing to sell yet. We just want your feedback as a CISO, as a security leader, as a control system engineer in manufacturing, for example. And almost over a year, we were on the road talking to people and discussing where they were in terms of security for their control system networks and industrial networks. And what we learned is basically at that time, I was, I'm an engineer and a security guy, so I was all about detections, and I wanted to build a detection to detect things like Stuxnet, the attack what occurred in Iran on the centrifuge things, and it was a big thing at the time. And it was, we are going to build a product to detect that. And what we learned after that year of conversation and interviews is that basically people don't even have an inventory. And so the first thing we should do is to give the list of the asset, the list of devices that were connected on the network. That was the basic first thing they need to start something, because they have networks that are so huge. Just to paint a car, you need 10,000 IP addresses, 10,000. To manage a roadway or highway in a US state, you may need something like 100,000 IP addresses for road sensors, security cameras, payment system, digital signage, more and more coming in to be deployed. So, I mean, the network was so huge that even an inventory and not sending someone doing an Excel spreadsheet by hand was something for them. So yeah, it's a process you have to follow in order to discover the need of your customer, and not be to be open to ask open question and understand where they are, what are their current pain points, and not push your willingness to build the greatest technology. That may come later, but start by where people are and try to solve.
Yeah, so let's start, and I love that kind of that view into how you think about building something and understanding what you're trying to build. This article that you wrote, it's on Substack, and we'll include the link to it through LinkedIn and whatnot. But it's unlocking the secrets of the cybersecurity product teams, and you start off with looking at founders, which you were in the case you just described, and having a fairy tale view of what you want to accomplish, which, as you describe in the article, has limits, right? Fairy tale has limits. What can you actually do? What's feasible? But then, to your point, you just described, the fairy tale may not be what's going to sell at the box office, right? You have to know what people are interested in, and then you get into, well, what is the product and the team that's responsible for building it. So tell me a little bit about the impetus behind writing this piece. what was the driver? Who were you trying to reach with it, and what were you trying to hopefully instill into them as a call to action or learning, perhaps?
Sure. I launched 3 months ago that Cyber Builders Substack in order to share some insight about how you build a product security, a product cybersecurity company, or you build a cybersecurity program at kind of any kind of business, because I really feel that it's really a building process. So I wanted to be able to share insights and feedback, etc. And when I discussed that with some of my peer entrepreneurs, one of them said to me, "Well, it's hard now. It's much more difficult than when we were a team of 10 people, because I had that vision for the product, and no one's really understand it, and I'm still the CEO of the company, but I cannot execute my vision because I have a larger team, and people don't get where we need to go, and they should listen to me, etc." So I say, yeah, well, it's basically something maybe is missing what the product role is within a product-based company, because basically when you start and you grow up your company, you end up with no one really owning the product role in your business. It could be because at the beginning you have the CEO and the CTO, they are meeting every day, and they really collaborate, and they share the vision of the product. But when the company is growing, at some point the CEO become the sales guy, looking for selling the product and raising funds. And on the other end, the CTO has probably 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 engineers to manage, and he end up to be a people manager first, and implementing quality processes and engineering practice. And so the product is the orphan of that, because if they don't hire a CPO, a chief product officer, no one is really owning the product role. So I wrote that piece because, well, I wanted to explain that, hey, first, you should have someone in your company that is really the product manager of your product, or the chief product officer. But then you need to understand it's a very hard job, because in security it's not easy as probably in many other business, because you need to understand the security processes. You need to understand what kind of security your product can deliver. And if you're new in that role and new in the security industry, you may end up saying things like, "Oh, my product is going to protect you against any threat or anything, etc." And you end up with marketing crap, if I may say, that some companies are still saying, and most of the security practitioners are very fed up with, because everyone knows that a product is not here to solve everything. It's not a magic wand. It's something that, in part of your defense strategy, it's provide you some value. And the product manager need really to champion that, to understand where he can position his stuff in order to really deliver value, and not oversell it to the security practitioner who are the customer of that product, because if not, the sales and all the people behind the product manager will not really be able to be successful, because security people would say, "Oh no, just another marketing claim, and I don't trust this product company."
Yeah, it's a great point, and I often look back at my time when I was responsible for building the big yellow company's SIM product, and so many things come to mind just on this point, where the whole idea at the time, I had a vision of what SOAR is today, right? So kind of this whole orchestration of, you have all this stuff going on, and there's some level of automation to help you manage it all, because you can't hire all the people to do it. So that was kind of like my grand vision. Technology wasn't in a state that allowed that to happen, right? We were tied to Open LDAP and MySQL and a bunch of technologies that were complex, didn't scale well. You had to get licenses for this stuff, and installing it and deploying it was a real pain. So there's that whole part of it, which we'll leave aside for the moment. But once we delivered something, getting it to work in the environment was a whole nother ball of wax. And when I'm talking about not just the configuration, but I'm talking about the real operations. I don't know how many times we got requests and feedback that I could use this, but I'm missing a dashboard, I'm missing reporting, I'm missing how I connect this to the rest of the business. And yes, it had all the security bits, but lacked a lot in the operational bits.
Yeah.
And some of that was UX as well. So talk to me a little bit about some of those points in the PC road where, again, you have a clear understanding maybe what's needed from a security perspective, but missed the mark on some of the other stuff. And where does that land? Is it engineering? Is it product? Is it business? Who helps drive some of that stuff?
Well, I think you're touching a very good point. Is a product is really about the experience the user is going to have with that product. And if it's super hard to install, if it's super hard to operate, if it takes too much click to get the value or the data you want, there won't be any adoptions, and basically it will be it won't be a success. And it's even more important nowadays that any product today is a SaaS product sold as a subscription. Back in the day when you and I were younger, you were selling licenses. And the great things with licenses is that you can sell a license and run and go to the next customer because you are asking him to pay a big check for the license. I'm trying to be honest here, but and probably many software vendors at that time does not really care about how the product is going to be used, and they had some system integrators to take care of the customer. And so you sell a big check, and you come back 5 years later when you need to sell another license for a new product. No, everything is a subscription, and everything being kind of a land and expand sales tactic, meaning you start selling. For example, if you are selling by a seat of user, you start selling a few seats, and then you come back, take care of the customer success, which is a new role as well in the product company. You must be sure that the product itself is easy to install, easy to deploy, easy to connect to the rest of your IT systems. It delivers value very quick. That's why one of the jargon kind of thing you will always hear about is time to value. How much time does it take to get some value out of the product? And basically, in 2023, it should be 2 minutes and not 2 weeks as 20 years before. So that's I think very important to get is look at how fast you can empower your user with some value out of the product, and not just think that because you have the greatest technology, they will go for it and they will use it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, there was kind of looking back in time, and I'm sure it's very different now. I haven't built products in a few years, but and we talked briefly about this before we started recording. I lost count of how many reorganizations I experienced, moving from a technical product manager to a business product manager to a marketing product manager to a customer-facing product manager, and obviously the market facing as well. And I think there was always one person that kind of led, depending on who is at the top of the pyramid at each point in the time. But it almost seemed like that was just one person, and they had a special lean on how, or a special view on how things were to happen. And they weren't supported necessarily by multiple people under them to kind of bring all those different views under one umbrella. Because I know you in your document, you have the technical marketing role as part of the product, and I think those to me were probably sales engineers back in the day. Maybe now they're more system integrators, customer success. I don't know. How do small startups even? I mean, I was at a big company where resources were not endless, but certainly more plentiful than a startup, kind of bootstrapping thing. So how do security companies today kind of get those multiple views with limited resources?
Yeah, I think at least they need to make sure that they have a clear understanding of who is as the role of the product manager, and really the first thing they need to make sure is that the product manager who is at the cross road of user experience, technology, and business, and the product manager should not be someone just to manage the roadmap of the product. He should not look only at the product itself, but really at the product as a product line of business, and really make sure that he managed the growth and the success of its product. Airbnb recently had just announced, I guess, over the last week, that they are mixing what they used to call product managers and product marketing, because they want one person to be in charge of the product vision and roadmap, but also of the business metrics of that product. And I think that's very interesting, because you cannot be only the delivery guy that just looking at delivering new features and just counting new features without really understanding the impact of these features in the product. Are they really used? Are they helping to grow, sell more subscription, etc.? And so I think that, product manager is really one key role in any type of organization, startups or larger company. And then you really have the what I call product marketing in the article, but which is more about the promotion of the product itself. Or are you able to provide all the collateral to the sales force in order for them to be able to sell it? And because you need PowerPoint decks, you need user testimonial, you need use cases, you need webinars, you need events, you need tons of things, and that's really are the product marketing roles. And basically, if you look at where these two big roles are sitting in an organization, I would say that product by itself should be reporting at kind of a CPO level guy, really a C-level leader. And the product marketing, it really depends. I mean, as you said, sometimes it's the same CPO, sometimes it's the sales leader. It really depends what is the culture of the company and what are the type of product they have. There is companies where sales are very localized, I would say, per country or per territory, and that makes them selling tons of different products. In that case, maybe the product organization is really owning the product thing, and sales are per geography. Sometimes it's quite different, because sales wants to be able to adapt all the product marketing collateral to their home country, because there is some regulation. For example, in Europe we have GDPR, you don't have in the US. You have the NIST security framework. We have the EU Resilience Act, which are two different sets of regulation. So maybe you want to really adapt your marketing per region, and in that case, makes more sense to have product marketing people in the geographies. it really depends of your cybersecurity business. Security is a quite wide topic with many kind of products and people using them, and etc. So it's hard to have a one size fits all kind of answer here.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll kind of use something that I talk about on this show quite often from an operational perspective, where I think security has an opportunity to not just come in and say what you built as a business can be secured this way, right? So you've deployed that product with these APIs connected to these services using this data set. We now have these security controls to kind of mitigate all that exposure and risk. That's kind of the after the thought view of that. And where I'm saying security teams can actually help define how the business is architected and built and deployed and maintained, so you're reducing exposure and not killing the team in responding to stuff because you didn't build it quote unquote right in the first place. So I think product marketing or the product owner has the same opportunity here, looking at, well, kind of to your point, what are the market requirements for this? Not just customer requirements. What are the market requirements? What are the regulatory requirements? What are the operational requirements? What are the list of requirements? The challenge is then kind of consolidating those, pulling them together in a cohesive story and strategy. And you mentioned the word roadmap. How do you deliver it all, right? Eventually.
Yeah, and you should also look at integration of your product into other systems.
Right.
I was at RSA back in April, and there was some talks about how many security products people have deployed in their network. And the people were talking about 70, 80, 100 security products for one company. And so the person who has all that products to use, he wants to make sure he leverage his investment when he add one more to the stack. Because if he had one more and this is a silo and the data are not shared and the UI is very different than others and it takes yet another training, it's very hard for him to really be successful using it. So I think, the marketing is also about, all this is connecting to your operation, your practice, your regulation, your other products in IT system or security, the whole thing the customer has. And as I always argue, it's most of the time with the founders I'm meeting of startups is, don't look at things from your own point of view. Look at things from their point of view. It's not about you. It's about your customer and the kind of issue he has or she has, and not really about your great technology you build if you want to be successful. And that's why in my Substack article I argue also about what I call output-based metrics and driving by output and not outcome. Driving by outcome, not by output. Because what I've seen tons of time is, you have some VP or leaders say, hey guys, we want to be successful, so let's build a great product. And basically, you don't really understand, and it's not his job in the company to understand the in and outs of what would be the great product. He just wants the team to be productive, and he's investing a lot in salaries and funding the team, so he wants to get an outcome of it. But as he don't really know, what he say is he's trying to manage it using output-based metrics, like number of features delivered, number of user story. And in engineering, we do user story points, which are it's just a metric to compare things. It does not have any value, but some engineering leaders or VPs, SVPs could say, I want more, so give me more. You will be better if you give me more. Where on the contrary, if he were looking at outcome, he would look at his own business metrics and put that in front of the product team KPI and evaluation. Like, well, guys, I want, for example, to grow my user base of X% this year. I want this net new revenue for my company. And I don't care if you deliver 10 more features or just one. At some point, if I'm reaching my business metric, we are fine. You don't need to end up in a never-ending building loop. And that's why I'm also quoting this book I'm loving, and I have it on my bed shelf, and I'm looking at it every day almost, is Escaping the Build Trap. And Melissa Perry, the author, is advocating for escaping that build trap where we have an issue, let's build more. We have an issue, let's build more feature. And at the end, you end up with kind of Frankenstein product that basically they have tons of features, maybe used by one user. And the pain you have at that time is you will never escape that, because there is always one customer, and most of the time one big customer, that if you say, oh, I'm going to kill this one, he will say, no, I'm using it, and I'm doing millions of dollars with you, so you won't kill this one. I don't care if I'm the only user of that feature. It is great for me, so you keep developing it, maintaining it, etc. So I think you should be very lean in the way you create your roadmap and you manage your product, and always look at the outcome-based metrics I'm talking about, because probably less is more in such context.
Yeah, I love that example. And the build trap. That's a new term for me, but I've seen it where even big government entities, even if it's not a lot of money, it's the name, right? The name on the logo on the sales deck or the marketing deck that, let's be honest, provides value, right, to selling to the next customer. But some off the wall weird networking environment that you're trying to support has that one feature there that kind of holds you hostage as a company. And so if you start off being held hostage, it's hard to break free of that, from my experience anyway, from what I've seen and been involved with.
Yeah, I have one story to share on that. Is in my first company, I was a CTO there. We had very large governmental entities and public companies in France and Canada, and they had contradictory requests. So, for example, I remember we were adding an authentication feature, and one was willing to get this from the VPN certificate, and the other wants to have an SSO agent, and the third one was yet another thing, and I don't remember. And it was always a balance between the usage of the authentication and the level of security that it will bring. And basically, if we were looking at all the requests coming from sales, it would have filled all our engineering for a year. And I say, well, it's not possible. We should not do redundant things just because it's coming from 3 big customers. So I said to the sales leader, I said, let's meet with them, and we are going to do one thing, is to put all of them in the same room. And I've done one slide. Basically, the x-axis was security level, and the y-axis was UX, just to show them that it was a trade-off between the two. And then the dot was each customers. And then the magic happened, because they started to realize that, well, they were not aligned, and they started to say, oh, maybe we should discuss, or I understand the burden for you. And after 2 hours of conversation, we had only one feature to develop, and I solved almost hundreds of thousands of euros just with that meeting. So it was easy to do, but that's the kind of hacks or tricks you need to go through in order to save time. It's just talking to people and let them understand what they are asking for, and sometimes trying to escape that build trap in advance. It really happens. Yeah.
So how about we switch this slightly, because I'm thinking about a lot of security leaders and practitioners that are listening to this and saying it's interesting how companies build products and how they get their requirements and how they prioritize them, maybe make decisions. Your experience, especially now speaking to a lot of startups, where you see a lot of messaging and positioning and pitching for investment money, but ultimately those translate into pitches for sales from customers. What I want is your perspective on what to look for. Maybe you can start with the investor lens. What are some signs of companies that kind of get what they need to do? They understand what the role of product is in the bigger picture, and then perhaps how that translates for organizations looking to buy new products, and they're looking to advanced tech companies, startup companies that are doing something cool, but they don't want to make a mistake investing in somebody that's missing that big product picture, even though it sounds good in the product marketing spin. So yeah, it's a big question in two lenses, but maybe some thoughts on that. I'll share mine as well. But.
Yeah, I don't pretend to have the secret sauce of what everyone is looking for. What I would say is, especially for the people working at industrial and any end user company and my dear customers, I would say, is really to start sharing their pain, their issues, what are the problems they want to solve, and not jump directly to the solution. To really make sure that there is a clear understanding about what need to be solved, what are the issues, what are the drivers behind that issue. Is it a new regulation? Is it an integration problem? Is it another IT project because, I don't know, you want to deploy a new type of laptops or a new type of network, or I don't know. Really provide all the background needed and share that with your the people you are talking to, because most of the time, the people you are talking to, what they are going to do is to try to take notes of that and then go back internally to the product manager. And that product manager would try to do his own synthesis and then go back to the product engineering people, the software engineering people. And so each time someone is talking to someone else, basically you are losing some data, you are losing the quality of the signal. And you end up with the software engineering people being told, hey, we must do that. If not, we are losing the customer. Which what the customer probably never said, but that's the way it is presented. And then they are presented the solution, because in the process, everyone wants to add his own views and jump into the solution, like, I don't know, added this feature or extending to this kind of protocol or this kind of standard. I don't know. And if you provide really the background, the drivers, the issues, the problems you are trying to solve, and best you do that by writing them, then you have much more chance that the information won't be lost along the way, and the software engineer will receive your Word document where clearly you explain what you are trying to solve, and you will say, oh, that's easy. It take me 2 hours to code that and just add maybe 2 buttons or 2 fields in a database, and then you're done. And that's something I've seen many times, where basically at the end of the process, what we've done is to say to the engineer, who basically don't want too much to talk to the customer because they are afraid of it, say, well, you are going to talk directly to the customers. We are organizing that meeting. And I just read last week a post from Palantir, the big information data mining company, and they have a concept named, it's forward deploy engineering, where they do is they put helmets and anti-bullet kind of vest to their engineer, send them with the military they are serving, and try to learn from the military on the field. But it's very extreme, okay? But it's just to illustrate that idea of, well, really make sure that you don't lose what is the most precious, which are the pains you are trying to solve, and really make sure that, product sales understand it, product manager understand it, and software engineer get the right outcome at the end.
Yeah, literally in the trenches.
Exactly.
So another thing that comes to mind is, because we're talking about engineering here and putting them in with the customer. Another thing I experienced is overzealous architecture and overzealous design, where you want the perfect base on which to build, which could take a long time, but then also make it so complex, unless reducing complexity is part of the design. But it can make it very complex to where adding new things or responding to market changes or customer changes or threat changes, whatever changes coming your way, makes it very difficult to respond quickly. So kind of back to your outcome point, how important is it to be nimble and not overdo some things that can maybe hold you back in the future?
It's a never-ending question, I guess. And very, very hard, because for sure, great team ship. So at some point you need to ship your software, and you never ever will have 1 year or 2 years just to re-architecture it perfectly. So it just that is another fairy tale that engineer likes to hear, but it never happened, because there is customers, they want to have some increment of value and getting new things and solving their issues. So the perfect architecture don't really exist. On the other hand, well, if you don't have that kind of thinking about the architecture you want to build, and along the way, maybe having, let's say, 20% of your workload reserved to improving your architecture, solving what software engineer used to call technical depth, which are the thing you put on the back of your backlog, and you need to solve them in order not to be pulled back each time you try to build something new. You won't, if you don't do that, you won't be successful as well. And to give you an example on my own experience, one of the things we've done since the beginning in the Centrio product was to cut the part that is doing some protocol analysis, and the part that was doing the data mining of this data, the way we look at the kind of messages and vulnerabilities and all these things. And these two parts were in two different components of our software stack, which was an architectural design we took at day one, part of the overall vision. And it ended up the reason why Cisco bought the company. They wanted to integrate that first part, the protocol analysis and scanning capacity we have, directly into the networking architecture. So it was lightweight. It runs on only one core of a small ARM CPU. So, the architecture design pay off on the long term. But it's hard to do that. It's most of the time you encounter things, you discover that along the way, and you need to re-architecture as well. So I don't have a perfect answer there. It's always kind of a trade-off. Yeah,
I think there's never one answer. Right. Because as you're talking, I was thinking, do you make a big bet on something that's has a potential huge payoff, but takes a lot of investment, or do you try incremental things and try to find the one? I think we've seen it all and everywhere in between, right? Where depending on the scenario, the situation, you end up with different things.
No, and I mean, engineers need to remind that basically, if they are working in a startup, they are working in a company that has a pile of cash, and each month it's decreasing. So their job is to build something that makes the cash goes up and not down, just to survive. Because if not, they are closing the company and everyone goes elsewhere. So, I mean, that's kind of trade-off that everyone needs to make and be honest and open with the others, saying, well, this could be great, but it will take extra 6 months, so maybe later, or maybe we can split it in 2 or 3 parts, and I do this part now and the rest after. So yeah, it should be a conversation between the team, and not just engineering. I mean, product managers as well, CEOs and founders need to be part of that, because if not, they don't really understand what is happening, and at the end, they end up with yet another Frankenstein product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I love the runway analogy for that, because it is a runway, right? You want the plane to take off before the end of the runway, but you also want it to keep flying, not just crash in the water. And you don't want that plane to be a Frankenstein either, right?
Exactly.
Who knows what it's going to look like when it starts to fly. Well, Laurent, it's been fun. We touched on a few points in the article. Of course, I would encourage everybody to read through it. It's much more structured, perhaps, than my rambling and moving us around through today's conversation. But I really enjoyed this, and it brings back some memories, good and bad, and some examples from you, which were super cool to hear as well. So thank you. Love to have you on again. We can talk different points in bringing products to market and seeing them succeed, and investments and customer success. I mean, so many things we can talk about. So hopefully you'll come on again at some point. We can keep chatting.
Yeah, with great pleasure, Sean. Thanks for having me, and I'm definitely happy to come back.
Lovely, and thanks everybody for listening. Hope you enjoyed this, and please check out Laurent's post and connect with him on LinkedIn, and stay tuned for more episodes here on Redefining Cybersecurity. Thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSPmagazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.